You know my routine. Oh, I'm walking the dog. I'm walking a rerun to the park right now. We're going to throw the BALL. That's what we're going to do at the park. Um, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to start by going over packback responses first, then the quiz, then the current events at the end. But before I do any of that, I just wanted to talk. I think I had a couple slides about video game history that I wanted to include. And I don't have them in front of me, but I'm thinking there was one about like the golden age of arcades. And when arcades started, video arcades, first you had Pong, you had games like that. But when arcades started and kids were congregating in them, this was in the late 1970s, early 1980s, there was this concern about adolescent crime and truancy and that sort of thing, and drugs and degenerate people hanging out in these places, which is the same rhetoric that was associated with early cinema when cinema was new in the 1920s. And then cinema, walking across the street here, has now also converted to like a home form, talking about TV and video on demand. Like, 100 years ago, you go out to the cinema and now you sit and have the cinema brought into you. Similar thing is going on with video games, where you no longer had to go to an arcade. You could just like play it at home. The first big home gaming system, Atari 2600, that really took over the market. They had a colossal failure. I think it was 1982, 2 games, E.T. and Pac-Man. There were such disastrous conversions from the actual arcade version to the simplified cheap home version that it bombed, and it crashed the whole video game market for a while. So yeah, if you ever asked about games, E.T. and Pac-Man were colossal failures for Atari. Then I think I have a slide about Mortal Kombat and the sort of the moral panic that it created, because the graphics were now better. So when you rip into someone's face and rip out their skull, you could do it, whereas previously on Space Invaders or Asteroids or Centipede, it just looked like pixels blowing up. Now it kind of looked like a human form. So that caused people to get outraged, moral panic, and we have video game ratings largely because of Mortal Kombat. Okay, now on with the lecture. Whew, out of breath. Okay, now we're going to go over the packback responses from last week. I'm just going to focus specifically on the main question that I asked you all, where I had you listen, or I asked you to listen to one old time radio show. Old time radio, there was a question about that on the quiz. I think it ends September 1962. If you had to give a date, I think September 1962. That's when the last of the scripted programming aired on Sunday evening on the CBS radio network. Okay, I asked you, here's the 4 options I gave you: Fibber, McGee, and Molly, Quiet Please, Thing on the Forward Board, You Are There, which was about the Lincoln assassination. This is where they recreate the Lincoln assassination as if it had happened during the era of broadcast radio, what that would be like. Then we have the science fiction show called X-1, a logic named Joe. Okay, now rather than go over and summarize the responses, I took one response from each show, options A, B, C, and D, and I had artificial intelligence read that. That's what I'm going to play for you right now. And I realized that I should probably pick gender appropriate voices. And then I realized I don't really know the students in the class. I'm just being honest here. And I could kind of guess Cecilia. I think pretty sure that's a female name. Arjun, that's a Desi. That's a South Asian male name. Pretty sure of that. But there was one name, Lior, which I wasn't sure. I looked it up and it could be male or female. So Lior, I apologize. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter though. But the whole thing of trying to look for voices on AI made me realize that there's no gender neutral option. Right. That's interesting. There's no gender neutral option. It's only male or female. And the voices overwhelmingly, they would give a little picture, a little icon of kind of like the sample, the indicative, like this is what it's going to sound like. There was no people of color. Okay. I had to like dig down and find a person of color. So Lior, I picked what is a black male voice. It seems to be a little bit British. So Lior, I don't think you're a black British male. You could be, I don't know, but that's the voice I picked. Otherwise, it's just artificial intelligence reading the voices. We're going to do that right now.
I did enjoy hearing the episode from Fibber, McGee, and Molly. I found it funny and I laughed a couple of times. Before I listened to it, I didn't really see the point of listening along to a storyline if you couldn't see what was happening. However, I have a vivid imagination and I could imagine clearly everything that was happening in the episode, just like I do when I read books. I was surprised that I did enjoy the episode and could picture what was happening as I was listening to it.
This story was unlike anything I've heard before. The first thing I noticed immediately was the classic radio voice of the narrators. It sounds so different than how anyone talks today, but perfectly captures the eerie tone of the story. Another thing I noticed was the perfectly timed background noises and music that supported the story. It did a good job of being realistic and subtle, such as quiet footsteps, creaks, and the oil rig sounds. The story also relies not on jump scares and yelling, but rather on slow burn fear. The story is super weird, especially the way it ended with the twist and creepy reveal in the end.
Pretty impressive. The atmosphere they were able to create was honestly very immersive. All the diegetic sounds of the crowds in the background, people talking over each other, and how real the interviews felt were all major highlights. There were points where it was even quite difficult to hear or understand what the main reporter was saying, and even though I wish I could have, it honestly just made it more immersive. It was to the point I actually got somewhat shocked when the shot went off, even though I knew it was coming. The panic and franticness going on afterward was very well acted, and I liked how they dived into possible theories and reactions of other prominent figures like the news would do if this was a present-day occurrence, especially considering the time the broadcast was made.
I had a great experience with a Logic named Joe, as it was surprisingly futuristic. A Logic named Joe was made in the 1950s. But it really felt like it was talking about today's world with smart technology and AI helping people in ways that don't seem possible. The plot was clever, and the voice acting helped me visualize everything easily. It was fun, a little creepy at times, and all around enjoyable.
This is Professor Arsenault jumping in here. Yeah, I like all these old radio shows. I think the thing on the Forble board is pretty good, but A Logic Named Joe is incredible. It is amazing to listen to. It's about something called a logic, which is very, very clearly what we would call a computer today. And this logic goes out of control and starts to think for itself. And yeah, the whole story about technology out of control is incredibly relevant to all the discussion we are having today about AI. Go back, look at the instructions for that assignment, find that link. And if you did not listen to A Logic Named Joe, I highly recommend it. Okay, this is a very late edition. I've already made the video. I made it once. Listen to it as I was playing it back. I noticed something really weird. This is really freaky, okay? When that AI voice was reading the thing about, who was it wrote that? Cecilia wrote that about a Logic Named Joe, where she wrote, she felt like the show was talking about today's world with smart technology and AI helping or perhaps hindering people in ways that don't seem possible. Go back and listen to that thing again. Go back and listen to it again. The AI doesn't read the and perhaps hindering, because AI doesn't even want to suggest that it could possibly do anything negative, right? That thing is doing something weird. Cecilia wrote that AI might be possibly hindering humanity. AI doesn't want you to know that. According to AI, it's only helping you. I swear, listen to that again. It's weird. Felt compelled to record this and throw it in. Are you ready? Oh, rerun. Rerun is very picky about the balls. You want this? Is this ball better? Maybe a little bit better. Okay, now I'm going to go over the quiz questions. There's some questions I didn't take a screenshot of. The thing that a person from Westinghouse, a vice president from Westinghouse, heard, no, he saw, a guy from Westinghouse saw an ad for a Philadelphia department store, Horn's department store, which triggered the birth of broadcasting. So that's the correct answer there. Someone from Westinghouse saw an ad for a department store. What's another one? Oh, the reason that 91X does PSAs for the Mexican government is because the transmitter is in Mexico. Not that the signal reaches over the border. The transmitter is in Mexico. So 91X and also Z90. And I think there's some other radio stations owned by the same company. The transmitter is in Mexico. And the other one was like news talk. Country is the most popular radio format in terms of number of stations. Country is the most popular radio format in terms of number of stations, but people spend more time on news talk, okay? So people spend more time on news talk, even though country is the most popular in terms of number of radio stations. You might see that one again. Here, this was a gimme. This is an obvious one, and I'm surprised people got it wrong. From the third quarter of 2024, what platform was the most popular way for people to listen to music? AM, FM radio. This is straight from the lecture notes. This one, now, if you are getting this question correct, you're probably annoyed at your classmates. You're probably thinking, WTF, people, get it together. Look, a lot of people are still missing this. How much TV does the average American aged 18 to 34 watch on a daily basis? According to Nielsen, it's 3.5 hours. We talked about this at the beginning of the summer. I'm going to keep asking this question. The correct answer to this question is 3.5 hours. And I got one more here. This one also shocked me. Why are people getting this one wrong? I don't even know why people are getting this one wrong. What is the most common metric used in the radio industry for measuring the size of the audience? AQH share, average quarter hour share. I said that very clearly in the video lecture. I made a point of saying that very clearly, and it's in the lecture notes. So the lecture notes are there for a reason. I assume you're using them. I don't want the quizzes to be a group activity where people are sharing information, sharing screenshots, but if you have notes, you should certainly look at them. Okay, the ball playing was a bust. He didn't like any of the balls. I brought 3 different balls. He didn't like any, refused to even play. Now, to his credit, I found the balls in the backyard. There were balls I'd previously thrown that he didn't want and wouldn't pick up. So maybe it's bad on me, bad professor, for picking up 3 reject balls, but I couldn't find the red ball that he really wanted. Anyway, we're now just gonna go for a walk. I'm outside San Carlos Rec Center over there. Anybody knows where this is? Kind of near SDSU, pretty close. I know that there's this sort of alley with trees. It feels like you're walking through the forest for, 50, 100 feet, something like that. I'm just gonna walk there, circle back, and head home. Current events. Streaming is now the king of TV. What do we mean by that? Well, what do you mean by that, Arsenal? Everyone watches streaming TV already? No. May 2025, look at that chunk of information, that chunk for streaming, 44%. Of television watched in the United States, which includes streaming and includes things on YouTube and includes over-the-air television, includes cable, of all the television watched in the United States, 44.8%, let's say 45%, was streaming. This is the first time that streaming has been greater than the combined total of broadcasting and cable. If you combine broadcasting and cable, let's call that traditional television, which people watch in a linear fashion, basically meaning you watch it as it comes on. You don't watch on demand at your own leisure. Broadcasting and cable together is only 44%. Here we have 45%. Okay, so despite what you might think about the popularity of streaming, it is just now finally overtaken traditional television. Okay, that is what that headline means. And within streaming, the dominant platform is YouTube. That seems like the kind of thing I might ask on a quiz. I haven't done the next batch of quiz questions yet, but that seems like the kind of thing I might ask. Okay. Netflix is number 2. Netflix is huge. Okay. And then also, now this is ironic that the same time that this data comes out that streaming is now the number 1 way for people to watch, Netflix is going backwards, and Netflix is adding live TV channels. They're doing this in France. If it works in France, it might come to the US. But yeah, Netflix is kind of going back and reinventing traditional television. We got a couple of information here about China. IMAX is making this big push to expand in China. Why are they expanding in China? Because China is a big country. China is the most populous country on the planet, and Hollywood, American movie studios in Hollywood would love to get a bigger piece of the Chinese pie. China is very, very protective and doesn't allow foreign movies, foreign meaning movies from America, to come in. However, Hollywood uses some creative trickery to get their movies in. Iron Man 3 got enough money from Chinese investors that Iron Man 3 was able to consider itself and qualify itself as a Chinese film. So it automatically got distribution in China. And they apparently shot a couple of scenes where people were speaking Mandarin, which only only showed when Iron Man 3 was airing in China. And then they took out those scenes in the United States. I think that's fascinating. But yeah, Hollywood has been trying to get into China for a long time. And then this happened a couple of months ago. One of the biggest movies ever. Okay, it's made over almost $2 billion. Almost $2 billion. I don't even know how to say that. Niza 2. It's a sequel. Okay, it's an animated Chinese movie. Only made like 20 million in the US. That's what domestic means. Only made like 20 million in the US. It made all that other money in China. This is the first movie to ever make more than $1 billion with a B, more than $1 billion in a single country. Okay, some of those Avengers movies and the Avatar movies, and maybe some of the Star Wars movies have made more than $1 billion, maybe even more than $2 billion. but no movie has ever made more than 1 billion in one country, right? That's the metric we're looking at. And this movie made more than $1 billion in China. Okay, it made very little in the US, but it made a lot of money, and I think Hollywood is looking at that. And then we have this story about artificial intelligence. The Chinese government is going to use AI. I think I find this fascinating, to revitalize old kung fu movies as a way to promote China, I guess. Like soup up the audio and the video, not change the movie entirely, but just kind of improve them for modern audiences. And there will be a partnership to make a new John Woo movie, and that is going to be a new movie made entirely with AI. Full process AI produced animated feature film. Okay, whatever that is. Anyway, this article here mentions Jackie Chan's Drunken Master. I took the time, your professor works hard for you. I found a little clip from Drunken Master 2 from Jackie Chan. I'm going to play it right here. Popeye, you know how Popeye eats spinach to give him strength? In Drunken Master 2 and Drunken Master, the main character drinks alcohol, and that gives him power, so he can fight really good with alcohol. Just play a little bit of Drunken Master 2 right here. And then we have this. I just put this because I think it's funny that there's going to be a popcorn bucket for the new Fantastic Four movie. The Galacticus, he's the villain. Spoiler, he's the villain. $80 for this collectible thing. Like, I seem like the kind of nerdy person that would buy this. This is totally insane for me. And I don't have space for this on my bookshelf because I've got the Dune obscene bucket there. And then here, New York Post, this get becoming a trend. Here's some New York Post headlines from this past week. I told you no, they like to do puns and then mull this over. Trump is going to, thinking about the bunk and buster. Anyway, there's no quiz questions about this. I just find the New York Post headlines to be kind of amusing. Okay, that's it for this lecture, current event stuff that's due Thursday, June 26th. Okay, we're going to end with a bonus song. You know me, you know my trend by now, and this one's about video games. Here you go.